One simply must imagine the late 19th century. It was a time of thrilling change, darling. The air itself seemed to crackle with new ideas. All across Europe, great minds were racing to invent the next astonishing thing. We had the telephone, a marvelous device for a good chat. We had the electric light bulb, which made everything look rather glamorous after dark. It was a world of steam and steel, of magnificent hats and even more magnificent ambitions. Everyone, it seemed, was in a great hurry to build the future. It was a terribly exciting and sometimes rather dangerous competition to see who would be remembered by history. This was the world that a clever Frenchman named Louis Le Prince called home. He was an artist, an inventor, and a true gentleman of vision. He watched all this progress with a keen eye, not just as a spectator, but as a participant. He was not content to simply admire the work of others. He had his own grand dream. Louis Le Prince was not just a dreamer. He was a doer, which is a quality I've always admired. He tinkered and toiled, experimenting with all sorts of contraptions. In 1888, a full 2 years before anyone else, he finally achieved the impossible. He created the world's very first single-lens motion picture camera. It was a rather chunky, mechanical-looking thing, but inside it held a secret that would change the world forever. It could capture a sequence of pictures so quickly that when played back, they created the illusion of movement. His first successful film was a charming little piece, shot in the garden of his in-laws' home in Roundhay. It is now called the Roundhay Garden scene. It is only 2 seconds long, but in those 2 seconds a miracle occurs. It was the first time in human history that a moment of real life had been captured in this way. He did not stop there, of course. A true artist is never satisfied. He filmed other little scenes, like traffic crossing Leeds Bridge. He was perfecting his technology, making it better, more reliable. He was not just capturing images. He was creating a new language, the language of cinema. One can only imagine the sheer delight Louis Le Prince must have felt. After years of solitary work, he was on the verge of a spectacular success. The planned trip to New York was not just a business venture. It was the culmination of a lifelong dream. It was his chance to step out of the workshop and onto the world stage. Before setting off for America, he decided to take a short trip to France. It was a simple, practical journey. He needed to visit his brother Albert in the city of Dijon. He wrote to his friends in Leeds, telling them of his plans and his imminent return. His letters were full of optimism and excitement for the future. The plan was simple. He would take a train from Dijon back to Paris. In Paris, he would meet his friends, who would then accompany him back to England. From England, he would board the ship to New York. Each step was carefully planned, a clear and logical path to his destiny. The day of his departure was the 16th of September in the year 1890. It was a day like any other, which makes what happened next all the more chilling. Louis Le Prince arrived at the Dijon train station accompanied by his brother, Albert. According to Albert, Louis was in high spirits, looking forward to his journey. Albert watched as his brother boarded the express train bound for Paris. He saw him find his compartment. The whistle blew and the train slowly chugged away from the platform. That was the last time anyone ever saw Louis Le Prince. When the train arrived in Paris a few hours later, his friends were waiting for him as planned. They watched as the passengers disembarked, but he never appeared. Growing concerned, they checked the train. His compartment was empty. What was even stranger was that his luggage was also gone. He had vanished completely without a trace. The authorities were alerted, of course. A frantic search began. The French police were thorough, but they found nothing, not a single clue. How does a man simply disappear from a moving train? It is a question that defies all logic. In the absence of facts, speculation rushes in to fill the void, darling. One of the most persistent whispers points a finger at his rivals. The late 19th century was a time of fierce patent wars. Men like Thomas Edison were powerful and famously protective of their own work. Could a rival have seen Le Prince as a threat to their own ambitions? And then there is the simplest and perhaps most tragic possibility, a terrible accident. Perhaps he felt unwell and opened the carriage door for air, losing his balance. Or maybe he was the victim of a random robbery that went horribly wrong. It is a mundane explanation for a magnificent mystery. Whatever the truth may be, the tragic fact is that Louis Le Prince was never seen again. His disappearance meant that his planned demonstration in New York never happened. History simply moved on without him. A few years later, other inventors successfully demonstrated their own motion picture technologies. They became the celebrated pioneers. His surviving film fragments are haunting artifacts. They are proof of his achievement, a glimpse into a history that almost was. So, the next time you sit in a darkened theatre, darling, and watch the magic of moving pictures unfold on the screen, spare a thought for the gentleman who vanished. Remember Louis Le Prince, the true unsung father of the cinema. He was an artist of extraordinary vision who captured life in a box but tragically disappeared before he could show it to the world. His story is the first great mystery of the movies. His ghost haunts the very invention he created, a silent, flickering presence in every frame we watch.